morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. We're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. And good morning to our viewers around the world. Thank you indeed for joining us here. We like to pride ourselves as a network built on trust. Thank you indeed, as always, for joining us here on the program. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Welcome back, and all the very best. That's how far we can go. Let's talk about a few things that Nigerians have been talking about. It looks like since the credentials of the presidential candidate was listed, and this is not the first time it's been published. It's the procedure in INEC, according to the Electoral Act, that before the election, a certain timeline is given where credentials of candidates will be presented or published for everyone to see. Yeah. So that if you have queries and inquiries, you could go make those queries and inquiries. Because for your information, now everything that has to do with credential is a pre-election matter. That argument is a back and forth, section 29, I think, or so. But what has generated lots of controversy, yet again, is the president's credentials. Now, the president, I've said, is surrounded by a lot of controversy, and I'm sure he's very familiar and used to this, because this is not the first time he's facing the issue of credential. There's the issue, in fact, when he was at Chatham House, I remember a lady called Priscilla in one of those conversations had to ask a lot of questions about his identity, several other things. So the debate about his identity that has been spoken about severally, his age, and the issue around civil forfeiture, not criminal indictment or criminal conviction, about $460,000 he had to forfeit in the United States when he was living in Chicago, that had to do with drugs. Well, it was a civil forfeiture because he wasn't indicted or convicted. So as far as that is concerned, there was no conviction. And then the issue of whether or not he went to primary school, he went to secondary school. The opposition is saying there was a time he actually presented some credentials and some college in Ibadan, one college in Lagos. I listened to the gentleman yesterday, Kalu Kali, saying that one of the things they dug out was the fact that there was a credential he presented one time that had to do with a school in Lagos that existed from 74, but he said he graduated in 70. And there's been a back and forth about the president's credential, the Chicago State University. But remember that this was an issue before last election. But it was presented late in the case, so at a preliminary level it was dismissed. So the substantive issues were not adjudicated upon. So perhaps coming into this election for a re-election as he's seeking, he decided he's not going to put any primary school and any secondary school, but just going to put what he has. And that has generated a lot of question, because for you to go to a university, there has to be a prerequisite. Those prerequisites are the secondary school or the college level, and for college level there has to be elementary level. So it's now a question of whether it's a moral argument or a legal argument. Now where it gets interesting is the fact that according to section 137 of the Constitution, which is the ground norm, certificate forgery, for instance, is a ground for disqualification. Now, nobody has said, at least by law, has proven that he forged any certificate. But what is troubling is is it the choice of presenting a primary and secondary school certificate, or the inability itself? For context as well, what is required is school cert or its equivalent, which is the basic. The law says this is the minimum. The law did not give a maximum, so he chose to go higher than that. So the big question, Kelly, is, did President Bola Tinubu go to primary school? Did he go to secondary school? If he did, now he went to university, at least what we have available as a record from Chicago State, what did he present as a prerequisite? Those are going to be constant moral questions that will be put forward. And the way the law works and is framed right now, I think according to section, is it 29 or so, in the new Electoral Acts, because there's something called grounds of petition. Simply put, in plain English, is if you disagree about a candidate's whatever, the grounds under which you can take the person to court. In the Electoral Act 2022, it was issue around certificate was part of the grounds, but in this Electoral Act is being removed. And a lot of lawyers raise concern. And now where it gets complicated is that you and I, or even the opposition, or anyone cannot take any candidate to court because you don't have the local standard. The only person that can take the person to court on issues of discrepancy or whatever I feel can disqualify the person is the person who contested with him in the primary. So that is why, Kelly, do you know why I'm saying all of this? We must be involved as citizens, as everyone, in framing the law, so that when these things eventually are passed, we don't cry foul.
Yeah.
Because right now, let's even say you want to make a case out of this president's credential. I don't know how you want to walk around it with the electoral act as it is presently framed. Maybe with the constitution, because you're going to try to argue about forgery, which I don't think has been established anywhere. But the minimum qualification is school SATs or its equivalent. He has presented something higher than that.
Yeah.
So now is a ping pong between a moral argument and a legal argument.
Yeah.
But I think the president will do us a lot of favor if he just tells us exactly what this is, because he just leaves everybody in a limbo. He's the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Before you work here, before you work in any place, even he worked with Exxon, Mobil, I think he worked with Deloitte.
Yeah.
So those places, he should have presented something.
Yeah, well,
do you understand? So all of this is just an issue that shouldn't have been an issue. If only he had presented these credentials for INEC, for everyone to see. Now it is believed he never went to a primary school. It is believed he didn't go to a secondary school. So how in the world did he even get a degree? What did he present to get a degree in the university? So politicians. Politicians are stressing us.
Yeah, they'll always be politicians. I mean, you raised indeed very essential and pertinent questions, and I'm sure many Nigerians are also, asking those questions about the controversies, around the president's credentials. It beats my imagination that in this part of the world you see a politician on his Wikipedia or profile. When it gets to occupation, you see most of them use politician as the occupation. So I think it just speaks to the kind of country that we find ourselves. Someone was saying earlier also this morning that who did this to us as Nigerians? Who did this to us? So I think because we do not even have the kind of strong institutions that should indeed ensure compliance, with some of the demands of what some offices require. Maybe that's why we are also where we are today as a nation. Mr. President, I think Nigerians deserve to know. I think that Nigerians deserve to know indeed the schools you attended. Bring it up. Let's know. It can't be that there's a lot of controversies around you. There's the controversy around your age. There's controversy around how you got money. There's controversy around your credentials. I think Nigerians deserve to know. But more importantly, Jeff, if Mr. President had perhaps done well in the eyes of many Nigerians, I'm sure Nigerians will not even care whether you went to secondary or primary school. After all, in those days, some persons didn't even they had informal education. People sat under the trees to receive education in this country some years back, But if perhaps Nigerians would have felt or enjoyed the dividends of democracy, the ideals of democratic, ideals and all of that, perhaps Nigerians would care less about whether you have a WAEC or you have primary school certificate and all of that. So I think for me, apart from the fact that Nigerians deserve to know the truth, is the fact that if you had even done better, perhaps in the eyes of millions of the average Nigerian, I'm sure Nigerians would just say, you know what, we don't care whether you're a professor or not, whether you don't care whether you have a doctorate degree or not, so long as we can feel the impact of your leadership, Jeff.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they will say it's relative. When he went with the Catholic bishop, he was presenting the macro numbers.
Yeah.
The Catholic bishops were presenting the micro numbers, and all are correct at the same time.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is that whatever you do at the macro that is not compounding to all of us becomes almost null and void. We're not dismissing the macro being the foundation. However, again, let's also contextualize that in those days, too, people could go to school and go and read on their own without it, but we just need the certificate, because you need at least the certificate. Because I know that some persons actually stayed at home, maybe they didn't have the opportunity to pay school fees, but they were able to sit down and write WAEC and at GC, that's what it's called. So Mr. President, you are our president. I don't think capacity is a problem, but credential is a fundamental issue. Well, he has presented what he has, but the question, that's why I said, is more of a moral question now. But that's, Kelly, the reason why I raised the issue was, and the issue of legalese being a challenge, because whatever you do now, the only person that can challenge this president, as far as this issue is concerned, what's that gentleman's name? The one that contested with him in the primaries. For me, that was not a contest. It was just the APC trying to, check how solid they are on the ground, because President Tinubu and the gentleman that I'm even trying to remember his name.
Was that Jerry in his name?
I've forgotten his name. No, I've forgotten his name, but I remember.
From the southeast?
No, I think he's from Edo State. I'll remember his name. The reason we're talking about this is because right now, the bill for state police will be presented to Mr. President on the 3rd, I think, of September. There is a call for a memoranda. Simply put, what can you contribute to this bill to make it work more effectively so that governors don't turn this into private militia, the ones that are enemies of states? They are responsible ones. Well, you can do the judgment yourself. So the proposed framework will set national minimum standards, define state readiness, and grant clarification and clarify jurisdictional responsibility, ensure independent oversight, uphold human rights, and guarantee sustainable funding. It will also spell out an orderly transition to a dual policing structure. The next one says, the call for memoranda will run for 2 weeks, allowing citizens, professionals, civil society, security agencies, state and local government, academics, and other stakeholders to contribute. Submissions will be reviewed and integrated into the draft bill, which will then be subject to federal national consultation before being finalized and sent to the National Assembly. So whether you're a journalist, citizen, professional, whoever you are, I think there was a kind of thing that happened with the Electoral Acts. We missed a few things, and the politicians found a way to put some things that, if we saw it early, would have challenged it. Now, this is an opportunity. This is a bill that can define our security, either take us to the El Dorado we're looking for, or totally destroy us. The president, the leadership of our country has now given us an opportunity to say, as citizens, this bill is for you. What do you have that we can put to make it work? Please step forward as groups, as ethnic nationalities, whatever group you want to find, and make a contribution. Kelly.
Yes, I think it's a fantastic idea. The fact that the federal government is calling on Nigerians to get involved. Remember that the whole essence of democratic ideals is that participatory nature. So as a Nigerian, you should be involved. You should be happy to contribute to this state's policing, whether or not you're optimistic whether it's going to work or solve the challenges of this country or not, because you know how we can be with policy documents on paper. You know what, we say, you know what, when we switch gears to state police, we'll solve some of these issues and all of that. But then again, we'll switch gears and then the average politician will know how to manipulate and maneuver. So, but it's a good thing, and I want Nigerians to be involved, to contribute, because these things sometimes go under the radar. Sometimes Nigerians, we don't really care about a lot of things, but I think this is an opportunity for us to contribute, especially if you're here in this part of the world, because I'm not sure how much your experience is with the Nigeria police force. I'm not sure how that experience is, but I'm not sure it's very sweet for many Nigerians. I'm not sure it's really been something. It's really been something we look forward to. The average Nigerian, in fact, if you ask the average Nigerian, would you love to be a part of the police? The answer is almost no. Would you love your son or your daughter to join the Nigeria police force? The answer is no. So we have created a police in this part of the world where it's more like there's no other job, there's no other option. You know what? This is the only option. Let's just go and do it. It's not out of the passion. You know how you see the police in some parts of the world, and there's that pedigree, there's that prestige that comes with being a police officer in some parts of the world, but here that's not the case. So but I think that we can, and that's a reflection of our society in Nigeria. So I think we can contribute to this bill before Mr. President's finally, pens his signature to it, I think we can. I'm a bit here and there as to the particular proposal by Mr. President, because remember that the House had to adopt his own version of the proposed bill. And I'm yet to study both to see what's the difference between Mr. President's proposed state policing bill and that which the House of Reps were also proposing, because it would have been good to see what the differences are and what Mr. President is looking. There's that controversy around the control as well. Is it going to be centrally controlled? How is it going to be controlled? Is that controversy around the jurisdiction and all of that? I think all of this concerns Nigerians. We need to look at it and make their inputs in this bill. We have very limited time. I think we have a 7-week window from what I understand, but 2 weeks for the calls, and then
so please, maybe what we will do, we're going to do something. The producer will help us, so we'll keep reminding the people to make their contributions to this bill. Let's not have a federal police with state branches. Let's have truly state police. Let's also not have state police that the governors or the state sub-national leadership will turn into their private militia for election. Let's also not delude ourselves. There are people that will want to abuse the process. So all of the concerns you have, the government has given us an opportunity now. Please, whatever group you can form, put together, but first see what they've drafted. So it is a duty of government now to make it available online for everyone to see. I have seen the Senate version, I've seen part of the House version, I have seen what I can contribute. So you need to go find out what these versions are that the government is proposing, and then you can make your own contribution so that we can make Nigeria great. Because as soon as it's passed into law, your complaint is going to be in the past until it's properly amended. But we'll take a break and we'll bring in our guest who is going to look at the papers for us. Stay with us.